Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today we're going to be taking simple shapes and we're going to be turning them into geometric forms. We're going to be making cubes, see-through cubes, cones, a see-through cone, a cylinder, a see-through, or you could call it transparent cylinder, a rectangular prism, and we're going to be making pyramids. A triangle, a 3D triangle. Once we have practiced that, we're then going to take the shapes that we've learned, and sometimes by making a shape it inspires you. You get a feeling of, oh, that looks like, if I turn it upside down, an ice cream cone. So then that could inspire you to create a picture with an ice cream cone. Maybe somebody holding the ice cream cone. Maybe when you make the cubes or the rectangular prisms, this may look like buildings to you. You could stack them in rows and make cities, or make a country farm, stacking maybe the pyramid on top of the cube. So what we make today can sometimes inspire us to make new art or another art picture. So that's what we'll be doing. So as we make these shapes, kind of think about what this reminds you of as we're doing the lesson today. Here I took some of the shapes and I turned it into a camping landscape, or a landscape, which is a picture of the land, and I did a camping theme. The pyramid, or the triangular shape, is what inspired me to create this tent, and then I used cylinders for trash cans, a cylinder for a log, and then I used the cubes for a table. And I stuck some logs on a fire. And then I used the rectangle here as the dock that's in the pond. Today we're going to start with some scrap paper. And this is just going to be practice. So if you make a mistake, just go right next to it and start over. No big deal. Or redraw the line. So if you make a mistake, just redraw the line right on top. Just fix it. Because we're going to be using this as practice. So no need to erase, it's just practice. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and I'm going to use a Sharpie so you can see it really clearly, like these on here. We're going to start with a square, and we're going to leave room for the top of the square here. So we're just going to jump down, and the square is just going to be a few inches. So we're only going to jump down and maybe make a 2-inch line near the edge here in the upper corner. And again, this is practice. But even though it's practice, I still want you to try and do the best craftsmanship you can, because then it will look it'll look a lot better. And especially when you're making squares and whatnot. Now, a square is made up of 4 equal sides. So we want to come over approximately the same length as this line. If they're not exactly the same, that's okay, but just so it's similar. And now we're going to do the top, which is parallel to the bottom line. I want it to be the same size, the same length as this. And then I'm going to come down straight and connect all sides and all edges. So I do have what appears to be somewhat of a 4-sided equal square. Now, we're going to do this in what appears to be perspective, but it's not going to be exactly a 1-point perspective picture. It's just going to be a simplified version of making cubes. So we're just going to estimate the perspective by coming up diagonally. Now, when you have a square and it recedes back into space, this line is actually appears to be shorter than these lines. If you have a perfect square and it's a cube, all edges should be equal. But because it's in perspective, the appearance of it will be shorter. So when you're making your lines coming back that recede back into the distance, farther away, these are going to be shorter. So don't make it as long as this line. So now I'm going to continue back in the same diagonal back over here. From the bottom, come up diagonal, and from the top, come up diagonal. Again, similar lengths coming up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back down straight, and you can even come up straight from this. Up straight, and you want this to be a vertical line, straight up. And if they don't meet, see how I had to come straight up, and if it did not meet, I'm just going to extend this line to meet. And the same goes for this. I'm going to come over horizontally straight. And if they don't meet, bring up the line so they do meet. And again, this is our practice, so don't worry about erasing. If they don't meet, just make it meet. And can keep your line straight, as long as everything is straight. So now we have a cube. And now we're going to make a see-through cube. What's real important when you're doing this is to keep these lines completely vertical. You don't want them to become diagonal. So if your lines look a little off like this, then just redraw it so it's completely straight. Those need to be completely vertical. Now we're going to make a see-through cube. So I'm going to make my square. And then we're going to put a square inside this box. And to do that, come to this left corner, and I'm going to jump up and put a dot. Then I'm going to go up straight. And the space from here to the dot, if you look at that negative space here, it's less than a finger's width. That's the space you're going to extend above here. So you want this space to be equal to this space. Now I'm going to come over, and notice it's extending past the same amount of space. It's almost a finger. And then I'm going to slide over straight this way, the same space. It's actually almost the width of my Sharpie. So whatever this distance is, you want it to be the same as this one, and this one. Now I'm going to come back down straight. So now I have two squares that are the same size, but they're offset. One is higher up. If your lines aren't perfectly straight, just make them straight. You don't need to erase. Remember, this is practice. Now, one square is floating above the other square. We're going to now connect it. Corner to corner, corner to corner, corner to corner, and corner to corner. So now I have a cube that is see-through. The next one we'll make up here is going to be a cone. That's pretty easy right here. So I'm going to make a large capital letter A, but I'm not putting the center in. And I'm going to go ahead and dip down and up. And there is my solid cone. To make a cone that is see-through, I'm going to be making an oval on its side. When I make my ovals, I start off with the C shape on this side, come around and curve it the same C shape but opposite. I go slow when I make my oval. That way, I ensure that it's similar on both sides. When we freehand these, that means do it without a template or do it without a measuring device. When we do it by freehand, sometimes they're off a little bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and go up and then back down. And this will be the cone that is see-through. Transparent, a transparent cone. This is like a tunnel. You can go inside the cone and fill it with ice cream. Or it's a candy corn. So look, you don't have to do this, but I'm trying to remember what the candy corns look like. I think they're striped with different colors. So that could be a candy corn. Next, let's do a rectangular prism. So we're going to go ahead and draw a rectangle. And when you do this, again, craftsmanship. So go slow. Try and keep your lines horizontal. So you don't want to slant it downward. So come across, perfectly horizontal, and come back down vertical. And again, you want it to be a vertical line, not a crooked line. Sometimes with these lines, remember, kids will make mistakes and do it slightly diagonal. You want it to be straight, matching the straight line of your edge of your page. So the side is parallel with the side of your paper. Again, not vertical. Now we're going to make the diagonal line. So this is coming up diagonal and up diagonal, keeping this almost the same angle as this. And I'm going to do the same diagonal line here. This could be a little bit longer. Now, this is where kids have trouble. This needs to be vertical. This needs to be perfectly straight. So come down. Whoops, mine was a little wobbly. Straight. If yours is wobbly like mine, just make it a little bit thicker. And then I'm going to come across horizontal. So now I have my rectangular prism. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like if the prism is not drawn correctly. And some kids are doing this. What they're doing when they come back is maybe they'll do the diagonal line this way, but then when they do their second diagonal line, it sometimes appears to be this way. This is slightly diagonal. It's not completely horizontal, but it's not matching the same angle as this right in here. So if you look at this angle has to match. This diagonal has to be parallel with the bottom diagonal. To make it parallel, this is what it would have to look like. So if I come up straight like this is going to have to match here. So this angle's the same as this one. And the same thing goes for this corner. A very popular mistake is kids will go up straight, or straight like that. Or the line, rather, should come parallel, equal distance. So if I measured from this spot to this spot, it's the same as this spot to this spot. And this angle here, from this line to this line, matches this angle, if you're measuring angles. Another common mistake, when kids are making the vertical line, they're not keeping the vertical line parallel with this original line. So the vertical line down needs to be parallel, meaning equal distance from this point to this point, this point to this point. What kids are doing is they're making a crooked line, depending on how long these are. What it should be is straight parallel. And some of the tops are becoming distorted as well. And then they'll bring it to here. It should be parallel across, so that this is equal distance, this is equal distance. So you want to check your work. You don't want to have things looking off. This should appear to be like a diamond shape. And this you could turn into all kinds of stuff. If you make it really skinny, it could be a candy bar. I use the rectangular prism in my dock. Now we're going to be making cylinders. These are kind of cool. Start with an oval at the top, and then I'm trying to match my shape here as best I can on both sides. I'm coming off of this edge and I'm coming the widest part, I drop down vertically. And I start on the widest edge here, drop down straight and vertical. And a cylinder that's solid that you can't see through, you want these to be equal here, and you just simply mimic this. You're copying this curve. So this curve should match this curve as much as you can. Whoops, I got a little wonky here. When I make mistakes with Sharpies, I just make my line a little bit thicker. Now, we're going to make a cylinder that's see-through. It's the same as this. So we do our curve, come over. I'll make this one a little bit longer. And then I'm going to drop down, but I'll make it shorter like a can of tuna. Well, it's a little bit longer than a can of tuna. And then I'm going to match this shape, this curve. So I'm going to do the curve here, come around, and go slow. There. So now this is the tunnel inside, and it's see-through. This could be a glass of water, like a clear drinking glass. I put on the top of my, oh, here. There's the bottom of them. There's some drinks. So you could stick a straw in it. Even a straw is like a long tube, isn't it? So here we have our see-through cylinder. Again, this could be lots of things. You don't have to draw the drinking glass. You know, you can make a picnic. This would be fun to do and have all the food and packages. All of these could be different things on a picnic table. That might be inspiring to you. Now, we have a pyramid to do. So we're going to come over here in this blank space, or any space that you have around your page. So we're going to start off with an equilateral triangle, but we're going to do it, you know, we're not using measurement tools, so as equal as we can. So I'm just going to put a dot at the top, come down diagonal, and this will just estimate. I'm estimating these dots. That way I can look at it and say, does it look equal or do I need to adjust it? So it looks pretty good to me, so I'm just going to make my lines pretty straight. Because when you're doing geometric shapes like this, it's good to have as straight a line as you can. Do it freehand, by doing it freehand. And I actually prefer the freehand drawing lines. I think they're more creative than tracing them. Now, we're going to go up in a diagonal line. You can mimic this line if you want to. That's up to you. And again, this is not in realistic perspective, because normally in realistic perspective, we would have a vanishing point back here to exactly match. And then I'm just going to drop this line down. And if they don't meet, you just want to have them meet. And here we have our pyramid shape. And in perspective, as things go back into the horizon, they're shorter. In reality, this side of the triangle is the exact same size as this. But when things are farther away, they appear smaller. So there we have our pyramid shape. So that might inspire you to create a picture. You can even do an Egyptian picture. And let me show you over here. Let's come on down. I'm going to do it again, but I'll show you how to add some lines to it. So I'll show you how to do lines in the background. I'm going to come diagonally this side, come back down, and if you're going to do a pyramid or a building line, then we're going to add blocks. And then, and if you're doing a real pyramid, because they're so tall, as they get to the top, it's farther away. So these lines are closer together, if you've noticed here, where it's farther and it slowly gets closer. And then these lines come back diagonally as well. It mimics this angle here. And if you were to do it as a real perspective, you'd have a vanishing point over here. And these lines would come to the vanishing point. That's how you would do those lines. But we're just doing simple versions of 3D shapes without a vanishing point. I do have videos on these that show with the vanishing point, but this is just a simplified version. Now's the creative fun part. You're going to think of your own imaginary picture. And it doesn't necessarily have to be I don't want you to copy my campground idea, but think of what do these shapes inspire you? When you look at all these shapes, what do they look like to you? And we just brainstormed with the class I had right now, and we were thinking of even just doing a giant picnic table or a table filled with objects, like still life. And you could fill up this with objects, glasses or an ice cream sundae. And if you were to do this, say this is your glass, you want to make a fancy ice cream sundae or whatever. You don't have to keep this shape exactly perfectly cylinder. Say I'm going to do a fancy ice cream sundae glass. I do my oval at the top. I draw in my fancy ice cream sundae shape. Then I do my curve that mimics this curve. And then I want to put my base on. It's still going to be cylinder. And this is going to come down and around my foot of the glass. And then you could put your ice cream soda straw in. This could be ice cream here. You could do froth and fluff. Let's just really have some fun here. So see how I'm going to create now? Get a straw. And that's a cylinder. Fill it with some fun pattern. And then if you would have the see-through, you could even have, hunks of ice cream in here. And then your soda, little bubbles. And so there, oh my gosh, I want one of these right now. So here's your yummy ice cream soda. I could put some shadow lines. And then you can put it on a table. So use your imagination. Look at your shapes and what inspires you. Is this going to be cones from a construction site? Ice cubes floating on the ocean? Or icebergs? Somebody made a whole igloo using cubes. Here's cans of food, but that could be all kinds of things. Use your imagination, and I want to see some kind of really creative pictures.